sort of gave me the weekend to think about what I wanted to do. And apparently if you can piss, you can paint. That's what they say, not me.
Sorry to all the paint and decorators out there. I remember it was France 98. I went to watch the World Cup instead of sitting to my GCSEs.
Again, I said to my wife, look, I've got this opportunity to give it one last shot or have a basic comfy life and not have any challenges.
But you take such a hit on your personal finances and your standard of living for probably the first 3 to 5 years.
I went and got an overdraft for 50 grand and I was 45 grand in it before I received a penny from my clients.
If you had to give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
I said this to my little boy the other day. I said, you've got to aim for perfection, son. I said, if we aim for mediocrity, we'll be falling poor.
What was Ted's response?
Ted went, shut up, Dad.
And as Ted's rugby coach, I can vouch for the fact that he won't listen to a word of that that inspirational advice.
You two guys are obviously friends of mine as well as clients, but you're also two very interesting businesses which are completely different. So put together a little series of questions for our podcast. I want to just talk freely, full out. I'll obviously introduce myself, which is Ricky Field, but most people knowing this who follow Northern Accountants, they know me anyway. If you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Everybody knows you, Ricky. Let's not beat around the bush. Everyone knows Ricky.
Social butterfly.
So I'm Martin Johnson. I'm the founder of T2, which is where we are today. We are now 10 years old. At the end of May, we turn 10. We're a training and consulting business. Primarily, we do leadership development, but we help companies with their culture. We do executive coaching. We have events, an online platform. And Northern Accountants are our accountants and have helped us dramatically over the years. So looking forward to today, Ricky.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Martin.
Do I always have to go after him?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be hard to... It's a high bar to set, really.
I'll ask you some questions separately, Calum.
All right. Easy ones.
Easy ones before Martin, and then you don't have to copy.
Good.
Like your name.
Yeah. Well, I'll struggle with that. Calum Preston, owner of Zenith Developments, been going 9 years, coming up to our 10th year, which I'm looking forward to. We do construction, so sectors, NHS, working in healthcare, working retail, working for the Ministry of Defence. Just recently secured a project for the Ministry of Justice. So we have we're in some decent sectors at the minute. And looking forward to the next
I didn't realise we've been going very similar times. You
Not
both
far.
just mentioned 9 and 10 years.
Yeah.
What I should have said to begin with is thank you, Martin, for hosting us at the T2 Towers, which is a beautiful building. If anyone's ever been on Queen Street, Humber Street in the town centre, it's lovely. So thank you for letting us host it.
Well, again, we've just acquired this building, as you know, because you've helped us with it. So it's nice to be able to invite people like you in and you guys and use the facility because, like you say, it's an amazing place.
Absolutely. It's a great place. Probably one people don't know is there. There's just old buildings in town. If you're my age, you used to drink round here. Never really used to look at the buildings. Probably been for a slash somewhere around the corner, which is what we always used to do. But I won't say too much because the police are in. Which they are upstairs.
They are as well.
I guess the next part of the journey is you've told us who you are and what you do. I guess what I'm interested to know, and I guess people are, and what we're hoping they are on the podcast, is just getting to answer simple questions. But if anyone's thinking of setting up businesses, how did you get to be where you are today in terms of the industry, the sector, the job? I mean, I know for me, I don't want to repeat what I used to do, but people have read so many times that I started as a joiner and now I'm an accountant, which is always, I guess where I start with I worked in a fruit and veg shop first. So I know where I came from and where I got to and how I got there. But I guess, how did you guys get to where you got to today in the industries that you are? And I'll start with you, Cal.
I knew he was going to do that.
Because they're going to be different, hopefully. But
well, slightly, maybe. Well, how it started with me was I was a failed plumber, a bit like you, with a failed joinery.
Oh, I never said I was failed.
Well,
I just said
you
I started
always
in the
failed when
joinery
you
sector,
quit.
But, yeah.
But no, honestly, I wasn't that good at school, so they kicked me out every Friday. And I went to do a plumbing course with the Hull City Council, which I absolutely loved. Was really good at the practical, but the academics had let me down because of my schooling. So I went in to do the test. After I'd left school, the Hull City Council offered me a job, but on the basis that I would have passed this test, which I absolutely miserably failed. And I was absolutely gutted after that. It sort of gave me the weekend to think about what I wanted to do, and he sort of come up with a couple of options. One was a paint and decorator, and apparently if you can piss, you can paint. That's what they say, not me.
I'll be careful on the road, so when I go to paint and decorate.
Sorry to all the paint and decorators out there.
Bricklayers, well, I don't have to say out about them, do I? Jesus, they're a law to themselves. Prima donnas, and then the next one was a joinery apprenticeship. So having the weekend to think about it, I just said, yeah, let's go for the joinery. Went and did a joinery apprenticeship. It was like a council-backed apprenticeship scheme, but like various different companies would come in and interview you. So a couple of, and you just picked random people out of the full course. I missed the slot in the first one. They didn't pick me for whatever reason. And then the second slot of interviews come round, and it was Barrett's. And luckily I got interviewed, chose to interview, and got the job the next week. And it was like the most like prized asset was to get all the Barretts because they paid the most money. So yeah, that's how I started out as a joiner, and then yeah, that was it. Do you want to know about further on in the business? Or?
They also charged the most money, because I think I bought a Barrett house. But anyway, that was that was me just having a little gripe. And no, I'll come back to that one, Cal. I'll just ask Martin the same question in terms of how you got into this, because I know you've had a varied. I mean, I knew you from a young kid, and I don't ever recall. I mean, you was always someone who talked a lot, but which I'm going to get on camera. Nothing's changed, but at the same time, I know you've had varying different jobs. Yeah, I guess.
So again, like Calum, the one thing we do share is I struggled at school. I say struggled. I just pissed around. I didn't really get any GCSEs. I remember it was France '98. I went to watch the World Cup instead of sitting to my GCSEs. That was sort of my mindset at the time. So I didn't even pick them up. My friend picked them up, and I've still never seen him to this day, right? Rich Horn, you know Rich Horn? Yeah. He picked my GCSEs up, and he laughed over the phone and said, you've got 4 Ds, 2 E's, an F and a G. And I've still never seen any evidence of that, right? So I'm taking his word for it. But I didn't do well at school. I was in trouble quite a lot. I was just one of the lads, like all of us. So I left school. I actually had an apprenticeship in welding and fabricating. You don't know that, right? Welder. The worst welder in history, right? I used to burn myself all the time and punch and blow through bloody metal sheets, and I was a nightmare. So
you've still got the glasses on now.
I've still got the welding glasses on. So my way out was the military. I joined the military at 16. I served 5 years, had an amazing time, travelled the world, grew up a lot. And for a limited time in the military, I worked in the leadership school at the military, where we used to take people off to the Brecon Beacons and Dartmoor, and we used to teach them mission-based leadership. And that was where I first fell in love with this concept of everything in teams is about leadership. It's about the ability to galvanize a group of people to perform in one direction. And so then when I left the military, I went into the world of consulting. I started off selling the consulting because I wasn't experienced enough to do it myself. I was still only young. Fast forward 15 years of doing that, I rose the ranks in a company called Gartner, who was based out in New York. And I thought, you know what, I could do this for myself. And 10 years ago, I decided to give it a go.
Excellent. Sounds two very interesting stories, I guess, as to where people get to where they are now. What led you to actually? You've just said yourself, Martin. There, I thought I could do it myself. Was it the same for you, Cal? Was there ever a time? You get a lot of people who say I could do that myself, but there's obviously a lot more to business than just going, I can do it myself. There's risk. There's pressures on families if you've got them. There's your wage, which is what most people probably are concerned with at the time. Security probably is the word. What was in you to go on then? I will give this a go.
I think a few of them things that you just said, like the security and stuff like that. When I was a joiner, we set up a business prior to Zenith. So I had another business called McKilty for 6 years. It literally was just like a Baron, like was in agency, but we worked on the tools and worked for the clients. And we had we had a real sticky situation. One Christmas, we worked for a company and we was so commercially unaware, and we just didn't know our numbers. We didn't know what contracts we'd signed up to. We was basically joiners trying to operate in a business world. And they had us by the short and curlies, basically. And we had a nice little pot about 3 or 4 months prior to the Christmas, and I'm sat around the table with the missus. I've got a face like thunder. She doesn't know what's going on. I've got a bank balance of 0, and we're in this real sticky situation. So after that, I've vowed to myself that I wasn't going to proceed with this no longer. We finished the job. Fortunately, we got paid some of our money, enough to just like keep the house over our head and stuff like that. And then I basically went into security with another company as a contracts manager, and did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I just got that urge to go back, and I was at a bit of a crossroads with a I was doing a bit of consultancy, PMing, and I got made an offer to go on the books for this organisation, and they offered me the contract. And again, at Christmas, I had the Christmas period to think about it. And again, I said to my wife, look, I've got this opportunity to either go on my own and give it one last go and give it one last shot, or go down the comfort zone and just get my feet under the table somewhere and just have a basic comfy life and not have any challenges. And I decided to go down the other path and challenge myself, push me outside my comfort zone. And that was 9.5 years ago.
Because I think it's probably fair to say that what a lot of people hear from people in pubs, which is probably the most common place I hear people say it, down at the pub, you hear people say it. But ultimately, the early stages of business are really difficult. I'm guessing you both agree, and you've probably got stories of yourselves in the early days where you were struggling to find, the money to do certain things in life. Some employees are earning more than what you are, because that's just the way some people are built when it comes to, building. You need to save for a rainy day and whatever else it may be. Because I find a lot of businesses that don't operate in that way, they soon find themselves short very quickly. I guess they're the sticky early days. What's the most rewarding part of what you do?
What you mentioned there, Ricky, is quite important to touch upon, I think, because I don't know about Calum, I'm sure he would agree that there's a bit of an illusion when you start a business. Like, for example, I'd worked my way up from the military to Gartner, and I was earning a bloody good salary at Gartner. I was earning 6-figure salary, healthcare package, car, international travel, credit cards. I was rising the ranks, and we were living really, really well. And when we start the business, you take such a hit on your standard of living. Like, for the first 3 years of T2, I went from the security of Gartner and earning all of that and having a big package in security to literally paying myself enough to pay the bills, battening down the hatches. I remember me and Lucy, my wife, we went through all of our outgoings, and we was like cancelling Sky subscriptions and stuff like that, because we knew we needed runway to get the business off the ground, and that you need to reinvest in the business. And so you take such a hit on your personal finances and your standard of living for probably the first 3 to 5 years. Would you agree?
Yeah.
People think, oh, you're running a business, you're doing this. Honestly, I'd never earned as little amount of money as I did in the first 3 to 5 years, because you've got to. If you're making the decision, that's the first thing I'd say to people. You've got to reinvest in the business for the first 3 to 5 years. If you start milking it out thinking you're going to, you've made it, that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
So I would say personal finance was a challenge for the first 5 years.
And it's a lot of skills that people don't get taught from such an early age. I mean, we can say it from our point of view. We all came from a very similar background. The same council estate, effectively, all from the same postcode. And I guess getting taught those skills at a young age, definitely wasn't on my radar. Nobody taught me about personal finance and security. And I mean, parents always had a good job, and they was in a job all the time, and they did all the way to retirement age, and which was the sort of the standard protocol. But at the same time, nobody really teaches you those sort of skill sets as a young kid. As a young person. So doing it in a business, I always find really, it puts a smile on my face when I see businesses do well, because I know that the pain and the sweat that they've got to get to that point, which then always leads me on to. Now, obviously, we're 9 and 10 years into a business. I always ask, what's the most rewarding part now you are 10 years on? Because I'm sure the most rewarding part, maybe 8 years ago, might not be the same as it is now. It could be. I guess that's the question I posed here. Yeah. What's the most rewarding part of the job now?
I think, just go back on that question, because Martin answered it, and there's a lot of similarities to when I first set the business up. I went and got an overdraft for 50 grand, and I was 45 grand in it before I received a penny from my clients. And that's the sort of risk reward sort of thing that when you're setting a business up, you do roll the dice, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And there's a little bit of luck in there, but you need a little bit of strategy as well. So like I said, when I first set up, I basically put my house on as guarantee, which the wife still doesn't know at the minute. So she probably does now.
I'll tell her at some point. I'm sure.
You'll tell her on the school run. But yeah, seriously, that's the sort of state it gets to sometimes for some people. Martin was cutting his cloth accordingly. I didn't have a great salary to go into it, so I didn't have a great load of cash reserves. So it was almost like, look, bank, give me some overdraft.
But there's a great quote in the Calum. It's like, in your scenario, there's that quote that says, if you're going to take the island, you need to burn your boats. And I think because then you've got no choice but to be successful.
Yeah.
There's no turning back. And I think don't underestimate the sense of purpose and the motivation that gives somebody when there's no option but to succeed.
Oh, the back was against the wall. It was fight or flight, and there was no flight in me because I had 2 kids under 2 and a mortgage that I've just put on the line. So I either make us all homeless or make it work. And there's sort of no greater will to succeed, I don't think. So yeah, putting a lot on the line and getting out of your comfort zone was a big one for me. But you mentioned reward.
Oh, I mean, so if I was to say what was the most rewarding when we started versus what's the most rewarding now, when I first started, the most rewarding thing was at the end of each month, knowing you've made enough money to pay the wages and send everybody home to pay their bills. That was everything.
That comes quite high on quite a few people's, actually, which I won't say surprises me, but it just goes to show, I think, the person that's running the business and where it sets them up for the future. Because some people just think that business owners who start generating profits and living a certain life are only concerned about what they take on. The amount of people I know privately who actually worry about the staff's wages, I think a lot of it's to do with pride and honesty and what they see those people do on a day-to-day basis, I think helps them. But yeah,
I specifically remember thinking, get into in the first year or two, get into every month, paid your rent, paid your bills, paid everybody's wages, little bit left in the bank, we survived for another month. I remember that being everything. Like, you're literally only working this far ahead in front of your nose. Yes, you've got this vision for the business, and yes, you're looking 5 years and what it looks like. We'll come back to that. But in the first years, to say that you're living month to month, going, make some money, get your cash flow sorted, get your invoices paid, pay the wages, pay your rent, move on to the next month. Whereas now, 10 years on, that's not so much something I have to worry about, fortunately, anymore. So you do get to enjoy the other things. Like, I enjoy seeing the people who work for me thrive and be happy and, develop and all of that sort of stuff. I love the clients who, were so thankful for what we've done for them because it's changed their life in some way. The nicer, more long-lasting stuff I get to enjoy more now. But in the early days, I'll be honest, it was survival. It was literally month by month.
Well, I know you obviously do leadership courses based around some of this stuff, Matt. So it's quite, I won't say easy for you to say, but yeah, I think survival probably is biggest challenges in the early days is survival. Rewarding in the future generally is, seeing the staff and the clients and everybody else seeing a difference what you've made probably in the job that you've done. I mean, you've gone on to build some brilliant buildings for the NHS, Cal, haven't you? Which obviously, it can't be any more rewarding than that when, you just don't want to be in them after the event, but the superb facilities that you built for the local town, which are superb, aren't they?
Yeah, we're sort of leaving a stamp on the city, and that's what we want to do. We want to leave a legacy. That's, every time we drive past that building at Hull Royal, the kids go, "Oh, Dad, you built that," and it gives me a sense of pride in that. So, it's nice to deliver good quality buildings for, great clients like the NHS. But just touching on what Martin said again earlier is that sort of survival at the beginning. I when I first started the business and we was in, the overdraft, after we got out of it, I set up £100 a week into a savings account, and that was 9.5 years ago. I still have that savings account for that £100 a week, just for a rainy day, if anything ever happened, because that's how volatile the industry can be and how cutthroat business can be. So I thought, you know what, if I get after a year, maths, 5,200, £100 a week times 52, I'm thinking, all right, I've got out of this with £5,000, and that's enough to pay my mortgage for the next, however many months. But yeah, rewarding. I sort of think, echo what Martin said with seeing the staff and stuff like that. I'm massive on my well-being and everything we do with the Live Well Syndicate. I absolutely love. I love high performance, but I love the other side of it as well, like trying to improve our employees, our team, just like for their own families as well. Like if they can be better at home, then they should be better in the business, and that's how I see it. It's a double-edged sword. We need to get both sides right, and there's that balance. So I love seeing people deliver a great job for us and get the feedback and the plaudits that they deserve. So that's massively rewarding.
Good. Thank you for your answers. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, but I'm going to ask you one each.
I've got this wrote down, by the way.
I'm going to ask you, Cal, this question. What do you think separates successful businesses from the ones that are not so successful?
Difficult, really, because
the podcast within itself, isn't it?
It's difficult because there's a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than me, probably have a lot more ambition than me, and probably work harder than me. But the only thing I can put it down to is like my grit and sort of persistence has probably pushed me to where I am now, because you get setbacks, but if you can be persistent enough and keep going when you're facing adversity and just keep your head down and just keep going and just staying in the pocket, staying in that grind, I think is the biggest thing, because not every day is great, not every week's great. You have some shit months, you have some crap years, but you've just got to stay there. And as long as you can stay there and you keep doing a good job and you keep working hard, then hopefully chance will come. And when that opportunity comes, you've just got to grab it with both hands. And that's sort of what I won't say separates me, because I ain't got that much of a big ego that I think I'm above anybody. But I feel like if you can just stay in the pocket and stay in that grind and just keep turning out, and just everything revolves around hard work. You work hard at something that you love and you're passionate about, then hopefully you should reap the rewards from that.
Martin, I'm going to ask you another question rather than that question. In terms of, so we built businesses, we found it difficult in the early stages. Like everybody does, we've stuck in the game, which is what you've just said there, Cal. For everybody, we've come from different working backgrounds, different ethics, but obviously you get to a point in your business where obviously you've seen the wood for the trees, Matt. We've just said when it comes to finances, your aim of the game was to see a month in front of you, 3 months in front of you. You get to a point where you're now going, well, hold on, I've got a team in place now and I need to look 5 years in front of me, 10 years in front of me. And you probably always have looked 5 and 10, but they become more of a realistic trigger point in the future, because now you're not looking a month ahead for the wages and 3 months ahead. In terms of what advice would you give, or how have you managed it in order to get to that point and then start looking at your vision and your success for the future?
Yeah, and I'll link into Calum's question into that, because it does link. I totally agree with Calum, and by the way, I think you're being harsh on you not being ambitious. I think you're one of the most ambitious people I know. But I would say, as well as the cultural stuff and the leadership stuff and building great teams and people and working hard and all the stuff we would usually give, I'll give a little bit of another non-negotiable thing in business that gets you to the point where we are now, where you can start looking ahead. And it sort of ties into what you do, Rick, at Northern Accountants, is I think people who are successful in business have a good understanding of numbers. They have a good understanding of what their business actually costs them to run. And that might seem a really basic and obvious thing to say, but it's not the case all of the time. You need to know what the difference between revenue is, profit, gross profit, net profit, EBITDA. You need to know what your fixed cost versus your variable costs are. You need to You need to have a good understanding of this, or you're just blind and you're just literally going from month to the month going, have we made any money? How much can I spend? Can I afford this luxury? And if the answer is, if you're not doing that and the answer is no, you're very quickly going to get into trouble and the whole thing becomes an issue. So I think you do need all the stuff Calum said, but from an early starting point, I made it my mission to know, I need to know the numbers. Even though I want an accountant and I didn't have any experience in finances, and I needed to know how everything ticked and, you know, what the differences were. So I could actually then make sure that I was building up my reserves. I wasn't spending more than I was bringing in. And that gets you to a point to where we are now, where actually you build up your reserves so much where you have capital. Then you can start looking at the future, that flag on the hill saying, okay, so if I'm going to double my business and go to 10 million in revenue, and I need to do it in this time frame, how do I do that, and what do I need to invest in now that's going to pay off for me further down the line? So an example of that is this building. And I was running out of space. So I was either going to have to build somewhere, find another premise, or buy this building. So we could then go again and grow within it. What technology do you need? Right? How many people do you need? How do you attract your client base? What's your marketing budget? How are you going to go about social media and your digital strategy? So you can start doing that when you've got money in the bank, because everything costs money. So you can start rolling the dice on things you pay for now that can start paying off for you further down the line. So I'd say you go from survival, living month to month, paying bills. If you understand your numbers, you can then, like Calum said with his £100 a month, I think it's a great analogy, you can start putting a bit away each month, build your reserves up. So then you end up getting into a position where you can start investing in things that are going to pay off further down the line.
And it's very unplugged, that question. So as in, I didn't plug you for that answer,
No.
which I'm really proud of. But you've actually answered in a way, and if anyone's watched, and it's another NA podcast for another day, which we've probably done 5 of them anyway, if anyone listens. But that is so important, what you've just said. From a numbers point of view, our business is no different to anybody else's. You need to know what you're doing. You live day by day, you take your salary on, but when it comes to numbers, I mean, I've had, fortunately or unfortunately, I've only actually worked within your business for a couple of years, and I've come at the stage where you're at that stage where you've forgot, you're not looking a month or 3 months in front of you, you're looking 3-5 years, which has been a real interesting sort of appointment to get you at that stage of a business, because not like any other business is different, but yours in this instance has been brilliant, because the sort of hero to zero moment has happened really quick in my incorporation of our relationship from a work point of view. We've known each other a long time. So, and you wouldn't ask these questions in a pub because I wouldn't get too close, and this is not the way I operate. So to listen to you and see the vision, it was a preloaded question because I kind of know where you're going in life. I just wanted you to tell me on a podcast, essentially. But it's been brilliant, and it's no different to anyone else's business, whether you're your size or a small size. Unless you know where you're going in the future, or what costs are coming up, or how can you scale the amount of businesses we say, oh, we're going to double in size in 2 years. And yeah, that's great. How are you going to do that? Oh, well, it'll just happen, and we'll pay for it, and we'll manage the finances. They've got no numbers to go off. And then they soon find out in 3 months' time when they haven't recruited the right person, or realise the process to recruit is, 3 months notice plus 3 months to get them up to the position where they need to be. That's a 6-month investment before they just think it can happen tomorrow. So I think it's really important that you know that.
I also think, and this is where our businesses differ a little bit, and I know it's give you sleepless nights at some point in your journey, but people don't talk about cash flow enough for me. I remember a great mentor of mine when I started. It was an old mentor, VP at Gartner. He said to me, Martin, remember when you start, he said, you can survive months without profit, but you can't survive a single month without cash. And I thought, that don't make sense. He went, no, hear me out. He said, you could have a great 2 or 3 months, right? And you could go then 2 or 3 months after that, and you might lose a bit of money and not make profit, but you're still in business if your cash flow's coming in. And that cash is king sort of mentality for me. So straight away, I made a couple of decisions early doors. I went 30 days payment upon signing a service agreement with us, regardless of when the training is being delivered, because that means we can then prepare, front load all of the materials. I'm never out of pocket. I'm paying for things at source. And we've stuck to it. And when you see companies, and I know it's real difficult in your industry, Cal, when we're getting geeky here now with cash flow and payment terms, but you're trying to win a contract and you say, yeah, I'll do 90 days payment just to win the contract. And you're front loading all of that cost up front for 3 months. That can catch you out. Now, I know you can do it strategically if you've got it offset with other clients or do, but my advice would be like some of your services and what you can help people do, look at their businesses is going, what does your cash flow model need to look like for you to never really be in that much trouble? And people don't talk about that enough.
We should have sat on the other end of the microphones here, because you're seeing some very. I've either taught you well or you've taught yourself.
You've taught me well,
yeah,
Rick. You've taught me well.
Yeah, but it's absolutely true. And I guess that leads you to the point where, obviously, where you're thinking about where your businesses are going in life, and obviously we chatted about this pre coming on the podcast, in terms of exit planning. And exit planning is really important. And I said, look, I don't want people to answer questions that they don't need to, because I don't want them giving out information. But there's one thing that's going to happen in life at some point is you may own the business today, but you're not always going to own it. So when people say, well, what do you mean by that? And I say, well, you one day you're not going to own this business, whether you sell it, you cease trading, or you pass it on to a family member, or you sell out to a management team. I'm always interested in, one, do you have exit plans? And two, how often do you revisit them in order to see whether it's aligning with where that hill moment is for Martin, as he called it earlier on, the flag on the hill. Kind of how often do you look at your exit plan? And have you got one? At such a young age, and I'll say a young age because everybody's retirement age is going to be different in people's heads, but realistically, you've got to have a plan. I always say this to clients, you must have a plan one day to get out of this business, because you can't wait forever. One, do you have a plan? And two, if you can loosely talk about it without giving away too much information and scaring employees of your firm, what is it? If you don't mind me saying.
Well, I think Mike Tyson said it, didn't he? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So that's why we appoint you, Rick, so that we don't get punched in the face. But no, I think just like Martin obviously clearly knew his numbers from an early age of the business. It was a bit, I knew my numbers. I kept everything on spreadsheets. I literally made sure I put every penny spent down on a project, so I knew exactly where I was to the penny, and it was very old school. That was before I had NA as an accountant. Now we've tripled revenue since you've been involved. But
for the running theme here, both of you anywhere.
But
we'll come back to it.
The boss.
Yeah. The first 8 years, believe it or not, I had no business plan. It's only...
I do believe it.
I
do believe it. So you're not the only one.
Year 8 is the first time we had a business plan. So in terms of strategy, I didn't really have a strategy. We just used to look at the bank balance and go, yeah, all right, that's growing. Yeah, all right. Didn't really know the numbers. Obviously, cash flow, I've always been on top of invoices, and I've always been on top of where we are cash flow. Never lived beyond my means. Only started taking a wage 18 months ago, as you know, properly. But in terms of strategy, it's only been this last 2 years since we've got involved in a more deeper financial business way with you. But in terms of our strategy, like I said, we've got a 5-year business plan. We're 1 year into that business plan already. How do I see the future panning out? Well, nobody knows, do they? Our industry, like I said, is one of the most volatile industries there is. It's construction, and it's ruthless. I'm going through some ruthless clients at the minute, and it's not a nice time. You have ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster in our industry. But in terms of how I would like to see the exit strategy, I would like to see in the next 5 or 10 years, we've built the business up to be sustainable without my involvement. I'd maybe like my kids to come into it if I really want to put them through the rigors of running a construction industry. I don't know. I'd like the team. We've discussed EMI shares and stuff like that to give them some buy-in to, if it was saleable in a few years' time, whatever, that they would get some buy-in to that as well. And if it did sell, then they would be remunerated for it as well. But then, like I say, there's the option for management buyouts as well, which I'm all all too open to. So I'm either or. You know, I don't discount any option really going forward. I don't even discount staying here till I'm old and I'm
not leaving.
decrepit.
No,
like
it's
the Wolf on Wall Street.
Yeah, it's just interesting to know that you've people and you're not on your own, and we see it all too often, and people just think it's an upsell of services. It's general advice and guidance that I think people lack. Some people don't want it sometimes, which is fair enough, but ultimately you've come from a business what had no plan, it had no strategy. It was all in your head. It's on a spreadsheet, and we know now that's not sustainable to be the business you are today. That's just not sustainable, which you know that, and you don't do it anymore. But I'm just intrigued because other business owners out there who may listen to this, probably feel that they may have been in the same boat and that the guidance or the help isn't out there. Or if it is out there, I hope they're getting it, because ultimately it's needed. Because we have some brilliant businesses in Hull. I'll specify Hull because I don't really know. We have obviously offices in Leeds and, all throughout the country, if we have to be honest, in terms of, not offices, in terms of clients, their bases. But I'm a very Hull lad, and I see lots of good businesses in Hull. And having that conversation with them, whether I look after them or I don't, I always find real interesting, because we all come from a different background. And I know lots of people who use lots of different services, so it's great to hear, if we have to be honest. Matt, we talked about exit before.
I mean, it's a bit of a theme here. First 7 years, I didn't think too much about it as in true exit plan. Just do it in that from survival mode into finally made it into, right, let's look to the future. But 3 years ago when I was 40, I set my 10-year business plan. So I'm 50 and out is what I'm calling it. And Lucy says, I'll believe it when I see it. And so do many other people. But when I say that, I think we can get to where we need to be in the next 7 years, which will make the business saleable. And my desire would be for the management team at T2 to buy me out. For people who have worked exceptionally hard and helped me build this thing for what would be then almost 20 years, for them to have their day in the sun afterwards. And in order to do that, get the business to a position where it's investable, the banks will support it, the management team can buy me out, I'm comfortable with where I am, I then what I want to get out of it, but then they can go on and change their lives in the future 5 years down the line after that, or 10 years down the line after that. If that doesn't transpire, then still get it to a position where it's saleable. And like Calum, I don't know whether I will do it at that point. I might get to that point and go, I haven't had enough, or I'm loving this, or I've got another 5 years in me, or I'm not finished yet, or I want to go. I might get to that point and go, I'm done, and I want freedom of time and choice, and I want to go travelling and play golf with Ricky more, because 2 times a week's not enough. And and maybe that's what I get to, but I want to get it to the point where I've got the option to sell either to the management team or to a bigger organisation.
It's good to hear that you both that you think about it. I think that where the comment comes from this, and I'll be having it on the road with lots of different people, is I don't want them to tell me, this is my life and this is the plan I'm going to put on an open podcast. It's just to speak to that many people who just don't have a plan, and I just don't see how you can.
Sorry, Rick, don't you think that's important though? Because I'm always a fan of this concept of law of attraction. So if you can visualize where you want to be, then you can work back from that, and every action you take and decision you make is geared up to make that a reality. So if that is not clear, it's like a mission or a vision in a business. If that ain't clear, then what you're doing, you're just reacting. And
yeah, we're very similar on this, Matt. And we haven't pre-discussed this sort of stuff before, personally. But I agree with you that I see something in the future, and every action is to head towards where I'm heading.
For example, if I wanted to sell when I'm 50 in 7 years' time, I'm going, okay, so what does the revenue of profit look like? What does the infrastructure look like? How many staff do I have? What's my customer base look like? What's my revenue model? So I'm going, right, so if I'm going to get to that point, I need to win more clients now on a recurring revenue model, so an annual membership-based model rather than piecework. Because a business, as you will advise me, Rick, and know, is valued more on regular, reoccurring, locked-in revenue than it is up and down, peaks and troughs.
So, and what I'm saying to people, and I say to clients as well, is not everyone's vision is to sell. in 10 years or 5 years or whenever, or management buyout. Some people is, I'm going to work till I want to work and then I'll just stop trading, which is fine. So their flag on the hill is, I just want to make sure that I earn enough each year to justify the work that I do. And if that's what their vision and strategy is, that's great. As long as they say that that's what they're going to do.
But
so
if you don't define that,
you don't define it.
You don't know what to do.
You just you kind of inadvertently doing what you did in your early days of business. You're just seeing 1 and 3 months in front of you, which is, I don't think where the most successful businesses come out of. Not everyone needs to sell a business for 10 million quid. Not everyone needs to work till they're 70. They'll all have different strategies. It's just the ones who don't have them, I just feel as though that the concentration around the job and the service that they're delivering may not always be in tune with previous expectations. So
are they not missing an opportunity though, Rick? Do you know the ones that are just going to just dissolve the business at the end? Is it not a waste of
it is,
all the hard work?
Unfortunately, Cal, that's their choice, isn't it? And for me, everybody's entitled to what they want at the end of it. And if that's how they choose to get there, that's how they choose to get there. What I'm more interested in when I speak to businesses is, have something in mind for the future, because otherwise, what are you heading towards? I don't really know.
That fascinates me, that, Cal. How, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but how someone can do the blood, sweat and tears, the sacrifice, and then go, I'm just going to dissolve it at the end of it. Surely there's a better option, but like you say, if that's what somebody, but even coming back to the point, if you, or so let's say, for example, you went, I don't want to be massive. I just want to have a lifestyle business with a dozen employees, something that's manageable, that gives me work-life balance and a healthy living. And then at the end of it, I'll put a management team in place. I'll just be a shareholder, retire, and they can send me a check every month. Even if that's the outcome, then you're still creating the law of attraction, because what you say is, okay, in order for that to happen, what do I need to do? Well, I need a good management team in place. And I need X and I need Y. So you're still then starting to drive towards that direction, aren't you?
Yeah, it's an interesting comment that comes up quite often in what we see clients with, and it's always a question that takes a bit of time in order for the good client relationships to actually. Some people don't like talking about it. Maybe they don't like talking about it because they don't want to see an end game. Maybe some haven't thought about it. But I just always found it an interesting question when you're speaking to clients, and I know you two are slightly different because
we're oversharers, aren't we, Cal?
You're oversharers, and
I'll tell anybody anything.
I know where the drive and ambition is. Two quick questions for you both. Quick questions as well, because I know we love a podcast, and we do 4 hours around the golf course, and we probably could do 4 hours around here. What excites you most for the next 2 years, within your business? And if you had to give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Advice we can share on this podcast. What excites me most for the next 2 years? We're at a little bit of a precipice. This situation, like we say, a precipice. We're on the edge of the looking out.
That was when someone used to press on your belly.
I'm just going to go on Google.
A what? We're at this crossroads. We're at this crossroads, right? And it's sort of like we are at the beginning of the next journey. Like it's time to scale. It's time to really hit them metrics and targets over the next 7 years to get to where we need to be. So although it's been 10 years of hard work and we've made it to a point, it's like I'm back down.
You're back down the snacks on ladders,
and I'm more motivated than ever to say, right, if we're going to scale, we need to get back to that level of activity, drive, ambition, standards, excellence. We've got to bring quality people in. We've got to win new customers. We've got to innovate our products and services. So it's an exciting time for me, because it's like, yes, we've made it to base camp, Everest base camp, but if I want to get to the summit, the hardest part is about to begin. So that excites me, I think.
Do the staff know that?
Yeah.
You
do, don't you, Amy? Yeah. They do. No, we have this thing here at T2 called high challenge, high support. So it says if you work here, you are expected, you will be challenged to be your best, and you'll be supported in abundance. You will have all the development, you'll have the support, you'll have the reward, you'll be paid well, you'll have career progression, but there's an expectation that we deliver. High challenge, high support. So I think everybody's on board with that. And I always say, if not, this might not be the place for you. It might be a bit daunting. It might be a bit fast. So that excites me. I think we're at a really exciting point in time. And the second question was,
if you had to give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Don't go into welding. Because you were shit.
don't be a welder because you were shit. Yeah. I would say
It could have been shit in the military. We just don't,
Well,
we just don't know that.
Well, he did sink a ship.
We came home. Yeah,
No,
did
he sunk a ship.
yeah, it did technically sink a ship. That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another one.
I mean, it's easy to give yourself advice now, isn't it, with hindsight? But I would probably say, put your shield down a little bit. I think I spent far too long trying to fight fights and battles and prove myself, and the only way I knew how was because I grew up on, Brandsome like you guys, and lived on a council estate and went to a school and didn't get any GCSEs, and I think I had this overinflated need to prove myself. I remember going into Gartner, I was only 26, 27 years old, and I was working with 40, 50-year-old senior people from Microsoft and IBM and Oracle and the tech world. And they always used to say comments to me like, oh, you probably weren't born when this was out. And, just constant jabs of you're too young, you don't know what you're talking about. And so I always felt this need to fight. And obviously it's put me in good stead. But looking back on it, I think sometimes just put your shield down. Let your results, your hard work, and what you stand for do the talking.
The irony of that is we're between 40 and 50 now, and we probably say the same things, Matt. So
do you even remember this
don't
song?
Prejudge people, yeah. I employ people that had left school before they were born, which is... It worries me.
But
anyway.
you know what? I don't, because I remember how it made me feel. I try not to because I remember how it made me feel. But going back to it, why did that even need to rile me up?
Oh, no.
Why didn't I just have a little bit of a laugh with it and go, all right, whatever? But I did. I used to react to it quite a lot, and I'd probably have some fractious relationships in my early career with managers and colleagues where I think I was just a bit chimpy, because you're young and you're trying to prove yourself. So my advice would be put your shield down, let your results do the talking.
Good answers. Cal?
Well, I'll start on what you finished on. Very similar. Listening to Martin now, there's a lot of parallels between his upbringing and my upbringing. It was same as the GCSE situation with him. I actually went to pick up mine and it was embarrassing. And I got them and the basic teachers laughed me out off the playground, basically. And when you become nothing, go to college again, do something with your life. But that's what I deserved because I put knack all into it. So I had a will to prove people wrong from an early age, and maybe my upbringing as well. Again, similar to Martin's. So that I wanted to really prove people wrong. That was what I wanted to do. What I would probably say to my younger self, just back yourself. Listen a bit more at school would be my first thing. Don't be a distraction. Listen more at school. I've not been tested, but I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic, and I'd like to get that tested at one day in my life. And I feel like that was, now there's all sorts of diagnoses, ADHD and dyslexia and all the other neurodiverse issues, and I'd definitely probably sit on that spectrum somewhere if I'd have been tested back then. Whereas now there's a label for it, isn't there? But I'd probably just say, listen more at school. It's pretty simple. Listen more at school. Be kind. Like Martin, I had my chimp out quite a lot. Even right through my early, probably mid-20s as well. I was always chimp out sort of thing. I'd battle anybody, didn't like taking criticism, accept criticism. It improves you, accept it, deal with the criticism and move on. Don't get the shield out and start battling back. I literally want my senior management to pull me apart. I tell them, give me what I'm bad at, because that's the only way I'm going to improve as a person, as a manager, as a leader. That's the only way I'll improve. So yeah, listen more and
we sound really mature.
Yeah, not.
We've changed,
Get
haven't
a
we?
couple of beers down us, and
They should
that'll
follow
change.
us around the golf course.
But yeah,
See the level of conversation come down a few pegs.
Wait until you get to the 19th hole. That's when the real conversation
Stick
starts.
a few beers in us as well, yeah.
I think what was the other one? Just the 2 year.
yeah, that excites you more about next 2 years, really.
I think we've got the business plan. It's a bit of a boring answer, really, but just to really nail home now. Try not to get distracted with other outside noise and try and just focus. That's one of my probably bad attributes, really, is like that I get easily distracted, and I'm in and out of quite a lot of projects. I don't really nail down one project, and I like to do about 10. Not very good, but I like to do 10 because I like variety. So yeah, just really in the next 2 years, improve what we've got, add to the quality of our team, because we've got an unbelievable great team, great people, and we just need to improve like what we're doing now and just really nail down. I said this to my little boy the other day, and it's quite harsh really, but I said, you've got to aim for perfection, son, because if you fall short of perfection, you'll be excellent. I said, if we aim for mediocrity, we'll be falling poor.
And what was Ted's response?
Ted went, shut up, Dad.
And as Ted's rugby coach, I can vouch for the fact that he won't listen to a word of that inspirational advice.
I think he took your advice because he's brilliant on the swings in the park. When I take the kids and I see him in there, but he's, no, but I guess it's true. I didn't realise how much actually the NA's path is actually aligned with where T2 are heading. Because honestly, if me and Phil and the other directors sat in here with Martin and listened to his answer and would switch chairs, it would pretty much be the same answer. Which I've asked myself a question, but it's nice to hear from other people, essentially, is what's happened. It's it's been really useful. I mean, this roadshow is going to go, well, it's carried on. We've already done 2 or 3 beforehand, and we are going to be...
None as good as this.
Yeah, none as good as this. We are going to be going to some of our other clients in different industries. I mean, we've got construction, got leadership and performance, going to engineering, going to manufacturing, and it's going to be, it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. I know a lot of the answers to a lot of questions from clients because I'm quite deep and close to them. So it's easy for me just to sit there and not let others. But we'll see. I know people are interested in podcasts, and I know they're interested in other people's businesses, more importantly. Not for a nosy, not to an ego, let's sit here and tell everybody how good we are and how hard it was and look where they've all ended up, because not every business, like I said, I think wants to head for that, sale and, flag on the hill. I think it's just more listening to, the difficulties that people come across in business from an early age, and not everything's easy. You might look back on the shiny internet and, TikTok and Instagram and all the rest of it, but I think, it's really important that people get to see different sides of where businesses have come from, where they're ending up, and the hurdles they've hit across the way. Because I can tell you right now, it's like that for a lot of people. You just don't go shouting about it when you're down here. You go shouting about it when you're up there.
I just want to add something to that, Rick, and you haven't prompted me with any question, but just for what you've added for me personally and the business is, do you know when you mention that up and down, it's only that down that I get in touch with you. Obviously, we go play golf and we've got a relationship outside of business, but when I need you most, that's when I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, which you've said.
And whether that's I've had a really bad job and we've lost a load of money on it, or whether that's we've got a problem with what we want to do in the future, or whatever that may be, I'm ringing you up and talking it through more than I am with anybody else. And it's really important that when I'm at my when I need you most, you're always there for us to pick us up and to give us that solid advice. And you can take yourself out of the situation. I'm in it. Like Martin will be, he'll be in his business, and it's hard for me and Martin to speak to anybody else about the business, especially the finances. And I think you do an absolute excellent, sterling job of that, Rick. So thanks.
Cheers, Bob.
Can you stop ringing him when he's on the golf course for me, though? Because he spent 9 holes trying to sort a problem out.
Sure,
That's
yeah,
right.
problem out.
The last thing I'd say,
I do
Rick,
appreciate that, Cal. Thanks. And it is the case for a lot of people, which is absolutely fine, because what we are, and I wrote a LinkedIn post about this about 2 weeks ago, is true. Sometimes we're not just advisors and accountants. They've got nobody else they're a one-man band company. They can't give away too much information to someone else. So if you're only speaking to me once a year, or you're not speaking to me about, I know more about people's private lives than I probably do my own at times, which is and it's great that they're dueling you in the bad times, because that's generally when the advice is probably needed the most, really. The good times, everyone's riding the wave and you are where you are, and everyone, you get a load of taggers on when it comes to the good days, but the bad days is not.
Or if you need like lawyers and solicitors shouting at, Ricky's really good at doing it in a more calm way,
in a professional way. But thanks for
the last thing I'd say, because I know we've got to wrap this up, Rick, is just a personal thing, just linking in from that. I think don't underestimate, and this is not going to be all accountants probably, or all, it's down to the person and the way they work. But one of the things you're good at that you don't realise is you understand people's levels of risk. And so what I mean by that is, you know what I think we once spoke and you said, right, if 10 is your attitude to risk is, let's roll the dice and go for it. High risk, but high reward, but also it means you could lose. And 1 is, I don't want to take any risks. I'm really, risk averse. If that's a 10-point scale, you're really good at going, well, Martin's a 6 or a 7.
He definitely knows I'm a 10, by the way.
He's a 10, I'm a 7, right? So that means, like, Calum, when the idea is hot and the emotion is high, Calum wants to roll the dice. And Rick is therefore going, I know Calum's a 10, so let me just slow him down, ask a million questions, let's check and verify. And if he still wants to go, we go. Whereas with me, he knows I'm a 7, so he knows I'm going to have thought about it a little bit more, or I'm maybe a little bit more nervous about it than you, or whatever it might be. So the advice you then give, or the conversations you have, are directly correlated to the level of risk that person. And I don't know if that's just over the years a knack you develop, but that's a really important thing for us, because if you know my attitude to risk, you'll advise me appropriately.
I think on that note, Matt, which nobody ever does, nobody ever asks me what this guy am from a 0 to a 10. And it's amazing, because the people, when I say nobody, if a client ever says to me, what would you do? I say, that's the worst possible question you can ever ask.
Because I buy racehorses, baby. So.
Correct. And I roll the dice on a 10 to 1 shot, no drama. So for me, and I love it when clients.
So if Calum's a 10 and I'm a 7, what are you?
Yeah,
12.
When clients ask me that question, what would you do? I genuinely say, do not ask me what I would do, because I always give the answer like you've just described, as to what, if I was you, this is what I would do. But don't ever do what I would do.
Because I'm not you.
Because I'm definitely not you.
You're real good at detaching yourself from that, though. That the emotion involved. Yeah, I know it's not yours.
It's not
but
mine.
You're really good at giving that advice.
Yeah.
So coming back to the question, what level are you? A 10?
It's another podcast. Ricky at level 9.4, I think we're going to call it. It's no, it genuinely depends on what it is, but I know, if I know my clients well enough, which is quite often I do, in order to, they wouldn't be asking that question if they didn't probably know me. I know that they have got a family and they've got kids, and where they are in their personal life from a finance point of view. So I do drag all of that into my thought process, rather than what. It's not just Martin taking a risk, it's Martin and there's a whole load of people behind you. Like you said earlier on, in your early days, paying people's wages is really important. So I guess that's where that side comes from. I know we have lived there, which was off my last question, and it wasn't prompted. So thank you for your replies, but also just thank you for the podcast. Like I say, we'll be doing some more of these. I'm sure you'll be drafted in at some other points to discuss, the future of the businesses. It'd be interesting to know where we are if we did one in 12 or 24 months' time for you guys. But for the purposes of what we've done today and the Roadshow podcasts, thank you for your time.
Cheers, Rick.
Cheers,
Ricky.
boys. Thank you.